I can't believe the dream that I had last night. I was laying, it's hard to remember, but I remember being in the dream, kind of like, I think, waking up from a dream. And as I was sitting there, I remember feeling an LSD trip coming on in the dream. And it was kind of fishy to me because I know I didn't eat any LSD in a dream. I was saying to myself, like, am I tripping? Did somebody slip something in my drink or whatever? And then the more I was thinking that, then all of a sudden I started tripping more and more and more in my dream. And I remember feeling and seeing a real trip, LSD, shrooms, whatever, in my dream. I was tripping in my dream, and it was exactly like a trip would be in normal life, except I was like that in my dream, and it was a speaker, some craziness in tongues or something, but I understood him, and it was like about life and beyond. Man, it was crazy, and like I remember it, man. I woke up feeling it, like I dreamt that I was tripping, but it was realistic and intense, and it still resonates with me. I guess tune in next time when I have some interesting shit to talk about. Other than that, I love you. I love the world. Peace out.
Material realm is just another level of vibration itself, and it's just as real as all the other vibrations. There is a hierarchy. Everything is electromagnetic vibrations. Our perception of what is light, sound, electricity, material is just a perception. In all reality, everything is just bouncing waves of vibration at different frequency, bouncing off of other waves, making standing waveform. Not really a big deal until you really look at reality, and it's kind of a big deal.
We must have a high tolerance for chaos. Learn to embrace the flow.
Forgive all that we can't forget. Regret nothing we can't let go. For despite what we have learned, infinitely more we do not know.
So let us tune our frequencies
until new vibrations grow. Let's pretend that it never ends.
And now, it's time to start the show.
Welcome to the Opus Marcus Podcast. I am your host, Marcus Oraelius. You are the audience, my extended family from the kingdom of heaven, and this is episode 24. I thought I'd take a moment to say that this episode marks 1 year of the Opus Marcus Podcast. Holy shit, how did that happen? There are very few things in my life I do with passionate consistency except shower and masturbate, but this podcast is truly a lot of fun, and I just want to thank you, whoever you are, for listening. So the elephant in this sound wave that I need to get off my chest is the announcement that my brother, Michael Vincent Salvatore D'Ambrose, passed away on March 21st at the age of 38. If you're a regular listener, then you know I did an episode with Michael back in January where he cathartically shared his journey from addiction to recovery. In February, he was a year clean. But a couple weeks ago, we got the call. He OD'd in a Motel 6. Now, the circumstances that led to that are worth going into, but not now. Suffice it to say, it was most likely an accident, however tragic and unfortunate. I do plan to make a tribute episode for Mike in the near future, But I'm telling you all this now because my brother had an obsession with fives. His screen name for years was Ambiance 555, and in the days after he died, I was seeing 555 constantly on the clock. At one point, an actual poem poured through me. Now, this is the first poem I've written in so long I can't even remember. That's a lot of explanation for such a short piece, but here it is, dedicated to my brother Mike, and it's called Psalm 555. How far in this crazy race can I take it? And what's at stake if I don't make it? This promise we made, do not forsake it. You see this face? No way I'm faking it. And I'm not afraid of the way you're taking it. Just making it up as I go, so come along. Let dissonant hearts find rhythm and throng together, temporarily forever. We can make whatever, poetry, song, or, if you prefer, a song. Okay, my guest today is making his second non-corporeal appearance on this podcast. This episode was pre-recorded from the future by time-traveling nanobots who manifest the mental mimesis of my friend and fellow energetic being, Anthony Oliver. So let's give his consciousness a call and see what thoughts he's broadcasting. They still have cell phones in the future. They're just embedded directly into the brainstem.
Hey, what's up, buddy?
What's going on, man?
Not much, just walking home from the hardware store with a bunch of paint.
You got a project in mind?
Just repairing some minor water damage from when the roof was leaking a couple of years ago. And there's a energy company, so like it's a non-profit, but it's like the electric company would have to do it. If not, they come in and do like the energy audit evaluations and stuff, and they're like subsidizing a shit ton of insulation be sprayed in to the house, but they won't do it until the damage is repaired because they're afraid the ceiling's gonna fall in. But it's just like mostly stains and some split seams from when the water was making everything swell. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
So I had to do a bunch of drywall work, and now I'm just got the paint so that when I'm done drywalling, I'm not gonna finish paint it, but I'm gonna, you know, hit it with a coat of paint, you know?
Yeah, sure.
A little primer, seal it up, at least hide where exactly I did the work, because the new crew isn't looking for the problem either, so I just want to cover it up because we didn't really replace a ton of shit, we just kind of made it pretty. So, because they came and looked at it, and like the guy who was having help me was like, yeah, he's like, technically you might want to replace a lot of this. He's like, but unless you want to actually go through the trouble of ripping this roof apart or the ceiling in my bedroom apart and like spending all the money on sheetrock isn't too expensive, but you know, you're still talking like a half a dozen sheets. You're still talking a day or two to put it up and drywall it correctly.
Right.
You know, he's like, for a few hours and some joint compound and screws, we can get this looking pretty. I'm like, I'm in.
Yeah, exactly. Keep it simple.
Yeah. He's like, it's not gonna fall in on your head with a bunch of cellulose. Fuck them, he said. He's like, fuck them. They're just covering their ass, you know?
Sure.
So
that's usually
so
how
I'm
it
just
is.
trying to hide all the repair work at this point. You know, I didn't want to paint it, but I don't want them to like come in and see it all done the way we did it, you know, because it'd be pretty obvious that we just fucking slapped up a bunch of joint compound. So I'm just covering it up with some primer, and I'll repaint it some other beholden day, you know?
Yeah. Nice. This is your day off?
No, I worked lunch. I just got out, so
Oh, cool.
it was dead. It's like the worst situation right now going into work, though. It's like I don't really make a lot of money, but I still spend about the same amount of time, and it's still just as draining, so it's kind of a shitty scenario, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But
Are you getting snow up by you?
Yeah, whatever. What?
Is there snow up by you yet? No, right?
Yeah, it's snowing right in my face right now, actually.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So yeah, it is snowing, but it's like right around freezing, so it's not sticking all too well.
Yeah, that's how it was for us this morning, but it's starting to stick now.
That sucks.
Oh, well, hey.
Well, one last hurrah for winter, and then it'll be over.
Yeah, well, you never know, but let's hope so.
Well, yeah, this has been one solid freeze up here. I don't know how it was down there, but usually, even if it snows this time of year, it usually freezes like 2 days. I mean, it thaws like 2 days later. It's been like fucking like teens. Literally, it's been in the teens and 20s, like insane for March.
Yeah. I mean, not that we have gotten snow in March before. I try to remind people of this. Like, I remember being in high school, we got a snowstorm,
Right,
a big one.
We get snow in March all the time, but it's in big ones, but it's like it melts in 2 days.
Right.
We had a storm, and it's been 15 to 20 degrees at night and 20 to 30 during the day.
Yeah, oh yeah.
For a week.
Yeah, that'll do it.
In the middle of March.
Wow.
On Cape Cod, that is not okay. not into it. Like, I don't know. I grew up around here, and I know what it's like in when we get snow in the spring.
Oh, I hear
I'm
you.
pretty sure it's not supposed to be colder than it was the entire month of February for a week in spring.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Can we even... I mean, I know the seasons are delineated by the position and rotation of the Earth, but the seasons, as we know in terms of weather and climate, that seems to be shifting. Like, can we actually... Is winter going to be what winter usually was in the few months? Or is it now shifting so that we're getting a later winter that lasts a little later due to climate change?
It's not even, though. It's more complex than that. Have I ever sent you that video about the movements of the Earth and the Sun?
Probably.
I'll find it and send it to you. There's a video that explains the half a dozen major dynamics that have nothing to do with the magnetic field of the Earth or the Sun or the solar cycles. So you've got solar cycles, which are kind of tied into the sun's magnetic field, but not necessarily the same, right? The sun can have other cycles. Then you have the Earth's magnetic cycle. Then you have like a half a dozen, I think it's like 9 different dynamics of rotation for the Earth and the sun. Yeah, like where the nodes are, the eccentricity of the node, like the actual relative position of the Earth of the sun, like the actual length of the year is slightly different every year, like length of day is slightly different every day. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Well, sure.
we're like, it's going to stay the same forever, even though we know there's been fucking huge-ass ice ages. Like, are you retards or are you retards?
Yeah, no. I mean, just because the Earth is in orbit, the position is shifting ever so slightly. And isn't the moon even moving further away from Earth?
Well, first of all, yes, the moon is slowly moving away from the Earth, but if you really want to get into it, that's another factor is the lunar cycle. So you have lunar cycles, which not only affect tides, but do affect temperatures and moisture in storm systems. Then you have the sun's solar cycle, then you have the sun's magnetic field, then you have the Earth's magnetosphere, right? Like, those things are all at play and all changing all the time. They are not static. They are dynamic as fuck. And subtle shifts in them can dramatically impact the Earth. Then you have the fact that the sun is traveling in a corkscrew throughout the universe, right? Because, like, that's the other thing. The sun is not heliocentric, is not really fixed either. It's not only hurtling through the universe, but it has a wobble of its own, if it's on its own path, because of all the other planets tugging on it.
Right.
Then the Earth has... Then we're spinning around the sun, and if you drew an equator around the sun and its central axis, right, of wherever it's traveling, like the angle of our ellipse is not always level. It actually changes which side is pitched, right?
Right.
Then the nodes can change where they are in relationship to the winter and the spring, which has a lot to do with ice ages. Then the eccentricity of the nodes can change, like how pointy or long they are. So, like I said, there's like 9 dynamics, and they're all long phase, 10,000, 5,000, 2,000 year cycles, and it's like they happen slowly, but they also have to reach tipping points, right?
Yes.
Well, son, we're standing on a tipping point, and it's been happening for a decade or two, and it's going to be happening for the rest of our lifetimes, but in the cosmological sense, it's like a blink of an eye.
Right, exactly.
And that's not even to mention the fact that we're finally back in the galactic equator again for the first time in like a million years, or whatever it is.
Well, isn't the...
Which is, like, so we're also, our solar system is in an orbital spiral, too.
Yeah, around the center of the
You
galaxy.
got all that going on. And then you get back to the fact that we're shitting and pissing all over ourselves as a society, so just saying.
So not only are we subject to these natural forces that have been going on since time began, but also we are contributing to the changes that are occurring, and that's what makes it so unpredictable, is because we're not sure.
We're impacting them in ways that we don't know.
Right, exactly.
But the bigger story is still back to that. We really don't know what's going on, and we better figure it out fast, because I'm pretty sure we can get wiped out in the blink of an eye by this shit, and we should be paying attention to it. And anything we can do might worsen or soften the blows, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter a hill of beans, because the Earth's magnetic field shifts a few hertz, we're all dead.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. There are catastrophes
within days, weeks, or a year. Oh, sorry?
No, I was going to say there are catastrophes that we can see coming and maybe try to prevent, and then there are other ones, you know, for example, like you said, like a coronal mass ejection, where in 8 minutes or a couple days, there's nothing you can do. It's hitting, right? So some things are going to happen so fast that can we even react to them?
Well, you can't react to it if you don't have a plan in place.
Right.
That's the thing. The time to start thinking about it isn't when the mass coronal ejection occurs or when all of a sudden Earth's magnetic fields drop to nothing and we're being bombarded with solar fucking radiation. Like, hello?
Now, see, the magnetic
field...
field...
You might want to think about that before it happens.
The magnetic field, I don't think they can really do anything about, but, you know, you can do something about, say, an asteroid.
There's lots of things you can do, like creating underground cities and stuff like that. Oh, wait, that's what our government and the elites have done.
Yeah, they've already done that shit. They're going to become... Did you ever see...
Okay, well, we either need to get on that list or we need to get the mass populace into this, because... you know what I'm saying?
Did you ever see...
I'm pretty sure you and I aren't on the list of a few thousand people that get to live.
No. Did you ever see The Time Machine by H.G. Wells? It was a 1960 movie adaptation.
No.
So, like, he builds this time machine.
No.
He builds this time machine. He's from the late 1800s, and he goes millions of years in the future. And there's a society above ground that is completely uneducated. Everything is given to them. They can do nothing but play all day. They barely speak to each other. And then there's a siren that goes off every night, and it calls them underground. And so you find out that there's another race, also humans, who during some, you know, nuclear war where the surface was being destroyed, they went underground, stayed there, became mutated. It's like that movie, it's the same exact premise, where there's the people on Earth, Elysium, I think it is, and then there's the big ships in the sky where everybody's has advanced technology and healing and lives in paradise.
It's the same thing as fucking Demolition Man, too. I mean, it's the same fucking theme.
Right.
I mean, you've seen Demolition Man, right?
Absolutely.
Wesley Snipes, Sylvester Stallone.
That was a great movie.
He goes to sleep, wakes up in the future.
Yeah, it was one of those surprisingly good movies where you think, oh, Sylvester Stallone, and then it turns out to be a pretty clever movie. A pretty good inference of what the future was going to be.
I wish they hadn't put Sandra
Bullock.
I wish they hadn't put Sandra Bullock in it, but it was clever.
Yeah, true.
But I feel like as much as Wesley Snipes and Sylvester Stallone are action movie guys, I also think they're both pretty cerebral dudes.
Sure.
And I think that if you look at it's like Bruce Willis, their taste in action movies isn't total spray cheese like Jean-Claude Van Damme, you know?
Yeah, you can tell by the scripts they
There's always
choose.
like a little something. Yeah, it's like, it reminds me of Marvel, where you're like, hey, there's some deeper layers to this. Awesome.
Yeah.
So what's going on down there, man? How's things?
Well, listen, in full disclosure, I'm recording you in case I want to do this for a podcast. I just figured, what the hell?
Sure, the Walking in the Snow podcast. I love it.
Yeah. Well, maybe walking in the snow. How far are you walking, actually?
Probably about a mile or two. I'm about a half a mile in.
That's not bad.
It's nothing. It's for me. It's nothing. It's like a good excuse to get a workout. People, when I work with people, and I work about 4 miles from my house, and I haven't had a car for a while, and unfortunately, it's the winter as a server on Cape Cod, and then you've got so financially I'm not always doing great, and then I got the springtime costing me money to get the farm set up. So it's like any money I can scrape together isn't going to be to buy a car right now. So I got to bide my time. But I end up, a lot of people I know end up helping me with rides. But the funnier part is I'm doing lifts and walking some of it to mix it up. And people can't understand when the weather's not horrible. Like right now it's snowing, but it's really not that bad.
Right.
And they're like, how could you do that? And I'm like, you people are fucking lazy. Like I as a server walk 10 miles on a shift. Like, why would I care about walking another 4 miles home?
Oh yeah, no, people don't want to walk anymore, and that's one of the reasons we have this obesity problem. Is our previous generations of grandparents and great grandparents, they walked everywhere. They ate a meal and then they went and they walked.
Well, you had built-in activity, low, moderate level, and some high level. Problem is now most people don't have any unless their life is fitness.
Exactly, yeah.
It's specialization gone awry. That's really what the story is, right?
Well, that and
we live in a society.
Well, I was going to say that and technology.
That and what?
Technology. I mean, the fact that you can just stare in front of a screen and get lost in it and not be aware of the passage of time, or the fact that you're being totally inactive during that time.
But that's an individual choice. I don't feel like... I'm going to use the same example I always use. All technologies have inherent flaws, dangers, risks, limitations. They're a tool. How they're used is up to us. I like to use fire. First guys that figured out fire figured out real quick that you burn your fucking self and how to keep it safe, right? I mean, look at all the fire codes. Look at all the technological development up until the invention of electricity when you didn't need fire to heat your home.
Yeah.
Everything was centered around culling the dangers of this technology, right?
Well,
and that's the problem. We indoctrinate technology so fast now that we don't have time to figure out the inherent dangers and guard against them. That happened with the X-ray machine. I think it was in the 20s or 30s in this country. They figured out X-rays worked, and then next thing you know, you had X-ray machines everywhere, including shoe stores, so you could stick your foot in an X-ray machine and see how your foot fit in the shoe. Then every 15 years later, everybody's dying of cancer, and now that's why you wear a lead bib when you go get your X-ray.
Yeah.
So and it's like the same thing with genetic modification. I have this idea of as soon as you say it's safe, I feel like you're full of shit. I'm not saying it's Satan itself, but as soon as you say it's safe, you're full of shit. We haven't actually addressed the actual dangers of this technology. It has inherent dangers. Everything does.
Well, and we haven't been around long enough to see the long-term effects of a lot of these things.
Well, that's the thing, and we've indoctrinated so many technologies that may be impacting us on low levels. It may be a long time before we figure out what's doing what. I mean, think about what kind of regulation there is on all the perfumes that are used in laundry detergents, home cleaning agents, Glade, all that stuff. None of that stuff is tested.
No.
It's all carcinogenic, guaranteed.
Or how about
everybody's spraying it on and...
How about just even Wi-Fi? Let's go even more intangible, where you can't see it, you can't feel it, and we really have no idea what it's doing to us.
Right, exactly. And here's the crazy thing, right? Because we say it's safe instead of saying we've learned that in the past there's inherent dangers we have to look for, and we should be looking for them. I mean, people kind of are, but not extraordinarily, right? What happens is you miss an opportunity where Wi-Fi could be this great technology that really all we need to do is find the right frequency where it like passes through us and doesn't disrupt us, right? Where it resonates instead of disrupts.
Right.
But we don't, because it's safe.
Well, yeah.
Even though I know for a fact that all technologies are dangerous, so what's the danger?
But isn't this what we do, though? I mean, this is part of our function is, and it's just like organic evolution, just with technology, where something comes up that's new, and then it has to be integrated. It can disrupt the system initially because the system isn't ready for it, and then the system has to adapt to it, you know, the transcend and include. And that's exactly what we're doing with these technologies. Like, yeah, we might find, oh, Wi-Fi is fucking us up, or this technology is fucking, or even these spray chemicals are fucking us up. But then, eventually, we find a way around it. We find a way to survive past it. That's evolution.
Right, because we learn how to minimize or guard against the inherent risks of a technology.
Well, entropy.
You know, that's why you don't stick your hand in a fireplace. That's a fireplace in a house is made of brick, you know? Like,
right.
That's why your car has brakes and safety belts. You go drive a classic car, it ain't got all that shit, man. It doesn't have analog brakes, doesn't have safety belts, you know? Like... You know, because we learned over time after enough people died in car accidents that, hey, but the problem is here's the problem. Number one is that we're indoctrinating technologies into becoming old hat and discarded so fast that we may have exposed ourselves to a lot of risk and then on and not even realize it, number one. And number two is, again, we're not just like... I don't know, like the whole idea, I just keep coming back to the whole idea that they're safe. Like, that, like if as soon as we say that, like, we fucked up. Because you know a car is dangerous. Oh, that was the other one, subtlety. All these things are, like you said, Wi-Fi, it's not tangible. So it's like, you know, people getting cancer from everything, and they're like, everything gives you cancer. Well, that's the truth. So why are we using all these things? But because we're using all these things because nobody can say for sure that we're poisoning ourselves with all these chemicals that are all sketchy because they don't kill you or cause you enough sickness quick enough that we can say, well, yeah, it's them. It could be the fucking coffee you drank this morning for all people know. You know what I mean?
I think that's some of the attitude. I think the attitude comes down to there's so many things that are going to kill me, but I can't just, you know, I can't be a Janist. I have to live my life, so I'm going to drink that coffee even if it has toxins, or I'm going to eat that beef if it's contaminated because something's going to get me. It's like people know that
that's the problem.
The dangers are so overwhelming, the poisons are so pervasive in our water and our soil and our air everywhere that it's almost like a futility. There's nothing you can do about it.
So just give up because you've lost.
Well,
that's the attitude. It's like it's so overwhelming, I'm going to give up.
Instead of thinking of it in terms of degrees of safety, right? Where, okay, this technology is an unknown.
It's also...
Go ahead.
Well, I look at it this way. That the attitude is exactly, it's overwhelming, what can I do? It's everywhere. But my song is, well, you can do something, and you can do a lot of things pretty quickly.
Yes.
You can buy non-scented, non-perfumed, or naturally scented stuff. You can minimize the amount of plastics in your life and use them in smart areas instead of to hold your food, things like that. You know, you can stop buying non-organic produce. You can start growing some of your own food and develop a relationship with a local farmer. It's pretty easy to do these days.
Right.
So, you know, there's a lot you can do.
It does come down to a
choice. What kind of toxic modern stuff you use. What?
It does come down to a personal choice, and you get to choose to what degree.
It comes down to a personal choice, and that's the message is, like, don't give up. Yes, it is everywhere. It's been there for a while, but there's something you can do about it, and it's worth it.
Do you think...
That's the problem. Everybody's like, it's not worth it, but I think quality of life is really worth it.
Well, looking at this from another perspective, where, like, the idea that all physical manifestations are reflections of vibrational energy. So that a physical cancer is really representative of a misbalanced or misaligned energy in your body. So that is it possible?
Physical can misalign that, and that.
But I mean, what I'm saying is,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. But what I'm saying is, if we became more adept at understanding our connection to frequency and our connection to the vibrations of everything, then could we prevent or heal these things that supposedly cause us damage on a physical level? Could we just heal them with the power of our minds or our vibrations?
I think that's partly correct, but it's partly false, for the simple fact that that the material realm is just another level of vibration itself, and it's just as real as all the other vibrations. There is a hierarchy. Everything is electromagnetic vibrations. Our perception of what is light, sound, electricity, material is just a perception. In all reality, everything is just bouncing waves of vibration at different frequency, bouncing off of other waves, making standing waveform. Not really a big deal until you really look at reality, and it's kind of a big deal. But the idea is, if material is nothing more than a vibration, it doesn't matter. It's still material, and it's still your reality, and there is an intrinsic interface between the different levels of energy. You know, that's the problem. We tend to try to think that if we get all deep in the spiritual shit, that we're going to be able to transcend the physical reality. But in all reality, that's not the case. You don't get to transcend until you die. So, we're at odds. The paradox is, I believe so. I believe any other transcension is just an illusion or a partial one. Otherwise, like, you're intrinsically connected to your body, and that no matter how much you diminish it, no matter how much you can cause a partial separation in a moment of astral projection or transcendental state, doesn't really matter, because the whole name of the game of evolving your spiritual self in those transcendental states is literally to help enhance the material reality which you're subjected to every day, because you came here to play the fucking game, so you can't get out until you're done.
So you are a coherent energy system that, you know, stays together more or less for this certain amount of time in a localized space, and then death is the thing where your energy dissipates or it changes. So you're saying that it pretty much stays. It's
No, I mean, the moment you're born, you're linked to this body, and as much as you are not the body, you are intrinsically connected to it for this lifetime, as short or as long as it is. Period. End of story. Get over it.
Well, what about like the mystics?
You get one car. You don't.
But what about the mystics that can transcend the body, or enlightenment, where suddenly
they're not. They're just transcending to other bodies, or they're transcending to their godhead, but they're still anchored in this body.
Right.
Because the you that transcends to the Godhead is not the Godhead. The Godhead is always there. Right. And you are always there at the Godhead.
Right.
You're just a mini-me, and that's the problem. It's like you're the automaton doll that is becoming self-aware.
Oh, I know it. I feel that that every single day.
You're just a replica of yourself.
Yeah.
What?
I was just going to say, that's what I tell myself every day when I look in the mirror.
Yeah, basically. But the idea is you're either in prison, here to work out a problem, not your own. I mean, that's part of the problem, but you're here to work out a problem like this is a simulation or a prison or it's a game. You tell me which one it is. I've been trying to figure it out for 2 years now.
Well, it's probably all the same. It's whatever you want it to be. You know, it's like the dog. You ever hear the story?
I don't think so.
No? Well, I think of it this way. So the dog that looks in the mirror, right? Or the dog is in a room of mirrors, surrounded by mirrors. And one dog looks in the mirror and sees multiple reflections of itself and thinks it's other dogs and starts growling at it. So, of course, all the reflections start growling back. You put another dog in there and it sees a bunch of reflections of what it thinks is other dogs, and it gets happy and excited. Oh my God, look, there's others like me. I can play with them. And it starts smiling and panting and wagging its tongue and its tail, and that's what the other reflections do. So that's what the world is.
That's happening on a level.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say is let's go away from that thought and let's transcend to a different thought. My thought is our true selves exist in a place where the time that we experience and space that we experience don't happen this way. And we can't comprehend it from these tiny mini bodies because they've been given these limitations to work better in this material reality, because that higher knowledge of no space, no time, acting the way we perceive it, in a Ouroboros would be very confusing here, right? So we kind of like separated from that knowledge. We're here, but we're locked in this cage. There's a lot of things that make me think that we're locked in here. And whether we locked ourselves in here voluntarily or involuntarily, we're locked in here, seems to be what I'm grappling with. And also, if we voluntarily locked ourselves in here, did we lock ourselves in here to protect the universe from ourselves? Did we lock ourselves in here to solve a problem through a simulation, or did we lock ourselves in here to have a game?
Or did we lock ourselves in here
the universe from ourselves?
Did we lock ourselves in here to raise the lower vibration up? Like you gotta get in to get
vibration.
Well, this is a physical reality. It's 3-dimensional. I'm knocking on this wood, and so there's a consciousness here that exists on a much lower level. So did we come here to raise the vibration of this universe? Like, is that what we're doing?
I don't believe so, because again, you're trying to create a hierarchy that doesn't exist in the universe, like that there is a good or bad.
No, not exactly. That's not what I'm saying.
Kind of false.
That's not what I'm saying.
Well, because you're implying a higher vibration is what we're seeking to do. We're taking the lower vibration, but it's like when you're listening to music, the bass line doesn't need to be higher. It needs to be a bass line. Your lead line needs to be high.
I'm thinking of it like...
Right?
Go ahead. And then
the idea of raising vibrations being good or important, I think, is a folly. I think the idea that vibrations need to be raised, I think, is really, 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 really difficult.
No, but I'm not saying...
I think the best way to...
Hold on, because I'm not saying that raising vibrations is good. I'm just saying it's natural. It's just like evolution. It's like water flowing around rocks. It's just what it does. That's just what we're doing. It's not like there's a grand
crescendos build up of energy and release.
Sure.
There's always a build up and release of energy. That's very natural. I mean, look at nature. The tectonic plate shifts build up pressure until one day a volcano erupts or an earthquake happens.
Right. So then I like to think of when I teach my kids, I teach them dimensions, or the idea of different dimensions existing simultaneously as concentric circles. So that's kind of when you say degrees or hierarchies, like yes, there in one sense there's a hierarchy of spiritual evolution, but if you think of it in terms of concentric circle, it's not a hierarchy, it's a holarchy. Every circle, every dimensional level is contained within each one. You have the big circle, and then you have a smaller circle inside of it. You have a smaller circle inside of that. So every dimension is overlapped on top of each other.
Of course.
But then if you are a specific energetic entity, if you're a dot, a localized dot on that concentric pattern, then you might be in, say, the third circle. Even though all levels exist simultaneously as one, you, as that little dot, can still move up and down through the vibrations because your energy is shifting and manifesting in flux.
Right. But what you're saying is you're here to take one circle and bring it to the next circle, and I don't know if that makes any sense. That's what I'm saying. Like, you might be here to jump from one stepping stone to the next, but I don't think our job is to change the color of a rainbow.
Okay, fair enough. I don't really know.
Like,
I mean,
if you're looking at a
ultimately,
color
I don't really know, right? I mean, in the end.
Okay, let me use a different conceptual model here. See if we can break this mental block. So, when you think of it as rainbow from infrared to ultraviolet, right? But what we don't understand, because our tiny little brains can't perceive this, is that if you took that rainbow and you wrapped that purple right onto the red in a circle, like a color wheel, and every time you go around the wheel, you're up another octave, but because it's a different frequency, the shade of purple is different. It's purple, but now it's like X-ray. Now it's like V-rays or gamma rays, you know?
Sure.
But the problem is we only perceive one octave. And like I said, it's also going in circles. So when you get to the highest frequency in your octave, you're really at the lowest frequency in the next octave.
Sure.
So it's like you're really always building up and resolving all the time. You're always creating
That's my
tension
point.
and resolving. That's a musical lesson.
But that's what we're doing on a cosmic level.
But I'm saying, but it's happening in such an orchestrated, complex, fractalized dance that it's hard to say that something is, other than one individual thing, it's hard to say raising vibrations or not, because some things are lowering vibrations or inherently lowering vibrations by raising vibrations.
Well,
and
that's true.
Also,
I mean,
it's not about just...
You're right.
It's not just about pitch, my friend. It's about timbre. It's about spacing and rhythm.
I mean, if you go back to...
What was that? Did you hear that?
I did hear that. If you go back to Thaddeus Golas, I mean, that's pretty much what he's saying. Thaddeus Golas says, right? I mean, because there's the three levels.
Well, that's one of the corrections he made. That's one of the corrections he made when he revised the Lazy Man's Guide. He said it's not about increasing or lowering your frequency, because you're always going from unconscious to conscious. So even if you increase the frequency, you're only conscious half the time.
Yeah,
it's
because
just
your energy.
changing from conscious to unconscious faster. He's saying the whole idea is to basically take those peaks of that algorithm and flatten them out to plateaus. You want to hold those states.
Yes. Boy, that's a great way to put it.
But
okay, so
that's kind of what he's talking about.
Yeah, because, I mean, there's space beings, energy beings, and mass
consciousness.
beings.
He's saying consciousness is what it's all about. He's basically saying what I've been saying for a long time. We're all focusing on the wrong goddamn thing. It's, instead of thinking about it in frequency terms, frequencies are changing all the time. The idea is about attention, intention, consciousness, mindfulness. Those are the only ways that we can capture this raising vibration and actually utilize it,
right,
which is by creating a plateau on that moment of epiphany.
Because what he's saying is that if you're...
And then that moment of epiphany disappears. Okay.
Yeah, no, right. But he's saying that if he's... What he's saying is... I just want to elaborate because I want to make sure I understand. I like repeating these things. He's saying if you're an energy being, you're constantly in flux, so you can never maintain consciousness.
Well,
consciousness in the form of energy is only conscious half the time because it's constantly changing. So a space being to him is fully
He's saying
conscious.
that if you're focusing on frequency, if you're focusing on raising your frequency, so it's like you have a synthesizer, right? Mm-hmm. And if you keep playing higher notes, you're going to have higher frequencies. But what he's saying is you grab the little fucking thing on the side that stretches out the peaks of the notes. That thing, the little bars and knobs you have on the side of a synthesizer.
Right.
You can change the algorithm of the oscilloscope. Like if you're looking at the sound wave in an oscilloscope, you'd be stretching out the peaks. And that's what he's saying is we're focusing on the wrong dynamic. Everybody's focusing on raising and lowering vibrations, but we're always raising and lowering our vibrations. The part that we want, if you care, to be conscious and chase some sense of what we call enlightenment, because you really never achieve it because it's an ever-changing state. But the idea is to always focus on expanding those moments of consciousness. That's all.
Right.
Yeah. Forget about the whole algorithm. Forget about frequencies. Forget about that all. Just expand consciousness. How do you do that? By being mindful, attentive, and intentive. In other words, have intentions and pay attention.
Okay, but when consciousness expands, when consciousness expands, then it starts to stretch out and include not just yourself, right? So then, let's say the consciousness of the planet, could expand. Like it just keeps going up and up and up on all these different levels.
When you become more conscious, you begin to think beyond this tiny little bubble that you live in. That's all it means.
Right. So now, what happens when every single living entity does that? What happens when everything does that?
That'll never happen.
Okay.
The universe will implode if that ever happened. It would cease to exist.
Right. So maybe that's what we're doing?
I guess, because, you have to understand, again, I'm going to refer back to one of my favorite archetypal references is the Vedic system, which is known as the Hindu system. They have Vishnu, Brahman, and Shiva, right? Those are considered the three aspects of reality. Okay?
Okay.
You have Brahman. He's the first created being and the creator. He creates things. There is Vishnu, the sustainer. He sustains things. And there is Shiva, the destroyer. She destroys things. Now, we only focus on destruction as destruction, but the idea is if you kept building stuff without destroying the old, you'd eventually fill up all the space. So, destruction, creation, and sustenance are all intrinsically intertwined. And that's really important because we keep focusing on trying to fix everything, and we don't realize to fix some things, we might have to break some things. And that no matter what, the universe is always breaking and fixing things constantly, and that what we think of good and bad really doesn't play on a cosmic scale. Think about it this way. If you're the godlike deity being controlling the universe, which universes, civilizations, and beings do you choose to kill? Just saying. Stuff gets destroyed all the time. Look at our planet in the wild. Stuff gets killed by other animals, by natural events. There's no giant god. It's just a creative algorithm of energy in the universe. And that energetic force doesn't care what it creates and destroys. And it's always creating and destroying.
Well, does it
when you start to look at it like that...
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Keep going.
What?
Keep going.
I'm just saying, so when you start to look at it like this, it's pretty dark, but it's also when we try to think about what's important and what's good and bad, we have to remember one of my favorite personal sayings that I made, which is the only importance in life is that which you place upon it. If planet Earth was gone from the cosmos tomorrow, I don't know if the rest of the universe would really care, but we would.
Well, we wouldn't be able to if we were gone.
We have to realize that our idea... What?
But would we be gone? I mean, what do you mean by gone? Just the Earth destroyed? Then
in this form.
Form.
That's what I'm saying. In this form. So it doesn't matter. Nothing matters. That's the point. And that's the point. What we came here to do doesn't matter. But I'm really fucking curious is why we're here.
Well, exactly. That's what I'm getting back to.
It matters to me. My personal... What?
That's what I'm getting at that too, because if nothing matters, then why did we fucking bother in the first place? That's why I can't buy that.
Which is why I'm fucking curious.
It's not that it's nothing. It's not so much that
why we're here.
It's not so much that nothing matters. It's that everything adds up to zero. It's a zero-sum universe. It cancels out. It seems meaningless because it's a blank canvas. It's always a blank canvas. It always. Well, no matter what you do, everything will cancel itself out in the end. That's why it appears to be nothing. That's why it's everything and nothing at once. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's meaningless.
No, but I'm saying the meanings that we try to attach to things are completely personal, first of all. And that our sense of meaning doesn't really comprehend the true sense of meaning of the universe, which brings us back to the point of where my curiosity is. What is the true meaning of this thing? What is the true nature of it?
Which is why I feel like
come here?
When consciousness evolves past the individual ego, then we can start to figure out those things more. That's why we're doing it.
You're talking about that crazy robot talk, man. You want to upload people's consciousnesses and shit. I'm not into that.
No, but see, I'm not. I don't know if technology. See, everybody's talking about doing it through technology, but I don't know if you even really need technology. It's all just what it is.
I don't think you do. Well, you do need technology. just not the kind of technology you're thinking of.
Right. Technology is also part of everything
technology.
else. Yeah, it's all part of it.
But I'm saying language is a technology. Mind exercises are a technology. Working out with weights is a technology. Like, you start picking up rocks, that's a technology to build muscle.
Right. So
you
think of consciousness, the technology. How do I say this?
But what is consciousness?
Well, because we don't have a technology for consciousness. We barely do. We're in the early alchemical stages, right? But we are consciousness. We are, but we don't understand it. We don't have the technology to completely understand it or use it or manipulate it.
But we don't understand ourselves, right?
Right. But
isn't that the paradox of the day?
But we
don't understand ourselves.
But we could develop technologies, spiritual technologies, that could help us grow and evolve. That's what meditation is.
I think
that's what meditation is. That's what yoga is. That's what all these different practices are. They're technologies.
That's what psychedelics are, buddy.
Yes, exactly. They're for evolving consciousness.
Well, they're for communication.
Yeah, what happens when you take
communication evolves consciousness?
What happens when you take a psychedelic? You get almost psychic, right? Where you can feel or read the other person. You realize that you're connected to that person, and there's no real difference between you. You're the same. You're different aspects of the same thing. So that's what I'm saying about consciousness evolution on a global scale. It's like the great trip where everybody is experiencing that. And you don't think we can get to that point where that could be hardwired into our DNA?
There is the yin to the yang. Well, I think that okay. Let me backpedal a little bit here. So I believe that any utopian or universal blissful thing is bullshit. I do think, though, that we are way on the unbalanced side of negativity, so we need to rebalance.
Okay.
But I don't think balance looks like the complete raising of consciousness of everybody or evisceration of all that is bad or evil by our judgment. I think that it is a rebalancing of fairness and stuff. It's kind of like Star Trek, where you don't live in a perfect world, but the world's utopian for the most part. But you look hard enough, you're going to find crime and nasty stuff.
But you're also going to find beings on different. You're also going to find beings on different dimensional levels and at different levels of consciousness.
No, they're already here. I already found them. I'm not going to wait. I'm extra fresh today.
You're not going on you're not going on any 5-year missions to seek out new life and new civilizations?
I've already been on a 35-year, 38-year mission, dude.
Yeah. Word. See, my biggest thing is memory, because I don't remember anything. I have a very poor memory for many, many past events, and the ones that I can remember, I don't remember the details as clearly. And so I wonder if memory is important. Like when I die, will I be able to remember and like the Akashic records? Will it all be there for me to access? Will I suddenly remember everything?
Well, I think that's where psychedelics come in, actually. So I think that's why soothsayers say you don't really remember other lives unless you're dreaming or in a transcendental state, because they're more attached to the body. But our bodies are like needles. Our brains are like a needle on a record in space. Mm-hmm. The hyperdense thing we call space is actually a giant piece of vinyl. And we're corkscrewing through it, and the earth is the actual arm of, like, earth and other things like it are like the arm of the record player, right? And we're the needles on a 3D record, but we're the master cutter, so we're actually vibrating and recording onto that vinyl.
That's beautiful. What a beautiful metaphor.
Well, that's Nassim Haramein. I mean, I've elaborated a little bit. That's where that originally comes from, so credit due. But the idea is we're space-time recording devices, so we're not recording our memories into ourselves. We're actually, the more conscious we are of what's happening, the more detailed information we're uploading.
Right.
And when you take psychedelic journeys, you're dumping them into the psychedelic catalog for others to access and yourself to access in other bodies.
Right.
Otherwise, they get left behind with the body.
Wow.
Crazy, right?
Is there any other way to do that besides psychedelics?
I'm sure, like meditation, just entering the psychedelic catalog, like I call it. It's like you have to be so fucking high that you're not seeing walls and stuff around you in the room. You're seeing the forest of psychedelic catalogs in a giant library of psychedelic information.
Right. It's not that you have
I've
to be
only
so
been
fucking
there 3
high.
times in my life.
It's not that you have to be so fucking high, it's that you have to be so fucking woke. You're waking up. It's like you're having a lucid dream.
No. Let me clarify. High is what I mean. Like, I don't mean high on drugs. I mean just high.
High
Whether
vibration.
you chant to get there,
Right.
whether whatever, you just gotta fucking increase your signal frequency.
Yeah. You need
a
to
little
wake
bit.
up more. That's what I'm saying. You're waking up more. You're becoming more aware. You're waking up inside the dream and going,
Well, here-
oh, yeah, wait, this is a dream. I remember now. Yeah, I'm just enjoying myself.
Well, look at it this way. Like, imagine that what you really are is a supercomputer, right? That's what you are if you go to the Godhead. If you go to what you call God or the universal Godhead or Creator, right? And you connect with it and realize that it's just you too, right? And that's a supercomputer, right? So that supercomputer is using a giant wireless or maybe even a hardwired system to communicate with a ton of like smartphone-like automatons. They have the same power as like a smartphone compared to the supercomputer. That operating system is your ego. Your computing power usually is fully inundated. It's really barely enough to even perceive what we perceive in reality.
Right.
So for you to connect with the supercomputer and talk to it in the supercomputer's language terms, which is not compressed data, which is not algorithmic shorthand like coding, it's like its language, you have to basically shut down all of your senses as much as you can and stop paying attention to them and processing them, because you have to use all your processing power to create a direct uplink with the supercomputer or the fucking the Godhead. So for you to do that, it takes all your power. So whether you get there by jumping out of a plane and like not thinking for 30 seconds or meditating or chanting or yoga or eating tons of psychedelics, it doesn't matter. It's all the same result. I am the first one to be here to say it's all the same. And if you start layering them together, you know, if you meditate and chant and then fucking jump out of a plane while on psychedelics, man, I bet you'd have a pretty good Godhead connection before you hit the ground. You know, the idea is to shove the ego aside, because the ego and that part that tries to create a holographic representation of what you're perceiving in your head requires all your computer power. So you have to shut that down, which is really hard because you're programmed to use that to record that information. So to get a direct uplink, you have to shut down that recording feature and all the processing associated with it. So however you do that, it's up to you. Whether you want to take a bunch of opiates, alcohol, whatever. The problem is when you take opiates and alcohol, you also impair the processing power. That's why psychedelics are great. They shut down the part of your brain that requires all the processing power and not the part of your brain that is needed to do all the processing. See, that's why.
Okay.
How you like that little little thing, huh?
That was extremely well put.
So this is a realization I had recently when I was trying to explain to someone what we're perceiving when we're in psychedelic states and we're having a hard time thinking, yet we seem to have like a full set of enhanced logic. And I like to use the example of we try to think of our logic-based problem-solving egocentric self as the only part of our self that has reason. And that's why we worry about getting too high on psychedelics and hurting ourselves, because we're not realizing that reason does not exclusively reside with logic. Actually, there's things that are logical that are completely unreasonable. That is why we are worried about AI, because its logic may not have the sense of reason that humans have. Right? So it's kind of like jumping back to the same thing. When you're in psychedelic states or in meditative states or whatever, and you're not thinking with that logic-based problem-solving brain, it doesn't mean that you're without reason. The only problem is when you first get in those states and you've never used the reason that resides in that part of your consciousness, it takes a while to develop it. But you have your reason. I like to quote Bill Hicks. You know, people think they could fly and jump off buildings. He's like, didn't you think to take off on the ground first?
Yeah. That's one of my favorites.
But again, you know, your first time inducing states, first few times, you might be like, oh, woo, and not really think. Like, hold on, let me keep my reason, because all of our reason, our whole lives has resided in the logic that we use from the ego. And that's the problem. We need to distinguish ego, reason, and logic are not one and the same.
Well, it's like you said, when you go to the next octave, you start at the lowest level of the octave. And so when you take a psychedelic, yeah, you're going to the higher level, but you're at the base of that higher level, and it can be overwhelming. This is why taking psychedelics regularly it's an exploration. It's a safari. It's a training. So,
I'm just starting a new toy.
It's all right. What is that?
Cool. I'm just starting this up, and I got it. Corey bought a chipper last week. We got it in the mail, and I started the break-in period, and the chipper, it's got like a blade assembly, and something flew apart in it.
Oh.
So I had the guy come here today, but I left before he showed up, so I was just starting and making sure. Sounds like he did the work to it.
Nice,
Beautiful.
nice.
So anyway.
Well, I only have about 5 more minutes, so let's try and.
So give me some thoughts.
Well, I don't know. I mean, we covered a lot already. What have you?
I know.
What do you think? Let's just go to a real world. What's happening right now in the world for a few minutes. One of the big things that everybody's talking about, like the school shootings. What the hell's going on with all that? Because I'm a teacher. I have a lot of coworkers freaking out over this, and it's happening all the time.
Well, like, is it really happening all the time? See, I mean, I'm not saying that there isn't an increasing frequency of this, but you're jamming more and more people into smaller and smaller spaces in larger and larger groups. You know, we are inherently a sick society with intrinsically inverted values, and not inherently, intrinsically inverted values. Like, it's like when we have people arguing whether the Second Amendment should be in the Constitution or not, or we should ask our government to limit our Second Amendment, I think these people have gone fucking mad. I don't carry a gun, okay? I don't carry a gun because I don't want the responsibility of gun ownership, okay?
Right.
But I grew up around guns. I've used firearms my whole life. I am a student of world history and U.S. history. I'm no expert, but I know more than enough to know that there's a reason the goddamn Second Amendment is in our fucking Constitution. And I'm pretty sure it's in plain fucking English why it's there. Never mind, if you're confused, go read any of the surrounding text written by all those men, and it will become painfully apparently clear what's going on with that. So that conversation to me is off the table. Now, limiting people's access to military weapons is one thing, but you're trying to lump any semi-automatic weapon into that's a rifle, and that's insane. To me, I think that the bigger conversation to be had is, what the fuck are we doing as a society as a whole that is fostering this? That's the conversation to me.
Well,
I feel like there's a mental health issue, there's a societal health issue at play, and there's a bunch of the fact that we don't have any connections to people. Like, why the fuck was this kid drummed out of school and nobody said maybe we need to help this kid? You know, like why are these? I mean, or even look at like forget about just school shootings in general. I mean, look at this guy that would have never been stopped by any law changes, and this guy, whatever his name in the Vegas shooting, Steve, whatever, like. That guy mowed down how many people? Like, you're not going to stop this. There's always bad people in the world.
Right.
But I think that what we're doing right now is we're creating a situation where these bad people are lashing out in grandiose ways because nobody wants to pay attention to them. It's all back to John Gottman.
Sure.
They want to be heard, seen, and understood. I mean, I'm sorry. I'm not saying that they're not going to be bad people and do bad things, but I think that they're lashing out so much because they don't feel any recognition. That's why bad guys that are gangsters stay gangsters, because they're getting recognized for being a bad motherfucker, you know? That's the problem. These guys that do these horrible things on this scale just don't have the nutsack to be a real fucking hardcore gangster, but they're obviously twisted enough that they can't blend with the rest of us. So, you know, and then you're giving all these people psychotropic drugs that have a 1 in 200 chance of causing them to have psychotic snaps anyway.
Right.
So
it kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier. There's an aberration in the system, right? There's chaos or disintegration, and we have to make modifications to decrease that level of disharmony.
Yeah,
because there is an increase in the shootings.
The first, yeah, but the first thing I want to say to you though is like, and Mike Rowe put it in a thing when people were asking him to speak up after that last big shooting. It really boils down to this: that you know, exactly that there's apparitions in the system, that there's a lot of people and a lot of access to information. So now it seems like these things are happening all the time. I mean, they're happening more frequently, but there's a lot more people.
Right.
And you know, and every time something happens, we all know about it.
And a lot more people. Well,
you know what I mean?
And a lot more people that are mentally.
And it's when it happens.
Disturbed.
Huh?
A lot more people that are mentally disturbed because of what you said, because of the society we've created. So it's not only just a lot of people, but a lot of people that are exposed to sickness.
Well, and that's the problem. And then they're told they're sick when they get anxiety, depression, angry. And again, I also think it's also weak. You're not teaching young men how to be men. Men have a violent impulse, and it is for survival. We're supposed to protect the people around us by killing other things to eat.
Right, and that impulse is not channeled at all.
So,
nobody channeled that impulse is not unless you're
right.
into sports, maybe, but not everybody is.
But that's what I'm trying to say is like teaching young men like boxing and martial arts and teaching young men to hunt. You know, like it's especially young men that show a propensity for violence. I know most people are like, oh my God, but like, no, maybe that's what they need is a lesson in respect and understanding, you know?
Yeah, well, what they need is something that properly channels and focuses all of these energies, these what we might call aggressive or violent.
That impulse isn't unnatural. You're telling me you don't have violent impulses even if you subdued them for society? You can't tell me that when you were younger, you would fucking beat someone's head in if you were mad enough?
Right.
And you felt like you could do it? Like,
right.
I'm not saying that you would have ever actually done it, but like, you don't think that there's no point in your life as a male where you could connect with that?
No, but if I wanted to punch somebody's head in and I decided not to do it, you know, the question then becomes, are you not doing it because and you have no emotional attachment to it? Or are you not doing it and then repressing that anger, which is part of the problem? Or are you not doing it because you know that it's wrong to punch somebody in the head, so instead you go and punch a punching bag? So, you know, that's what I'm saying. It does depend. It depends on the person. How do they choose to deal with because men, you're right, absolutely. Not only violent tendencies, not only the violent urges, but the sexual urges as well. They also need to be channeled in a healthy way.
Yeah, no, well, that's the problem. We've tabooized natural behaviors, and we've made them so difficult. I mean, you've heard Joe Rogan talk about the slippery slope of consent. The idea of with sexuality and consent when you're a young kid and you're just kind of like, well, I'm going to make a move. Well, if you make a move on the wrong girl in the wrong way and it's a little too aggressive, like I've slipped my hand on a girl's thigh that I've never kissed before.
Where's the line?
Like, that could have gone wrong real fast.
Yeah, the line is both clearly defined and fuzzy at the same time. It's like there is a line of consent, no doubt. But there's also that very, very fuzzy area where you're just two sexual beings feeling each other out.
Right, exactly. Because, like, that's the thing is, like, they might not have even made up their mind whether they're going to consent or not. Not to mention, like, I always err on this side of the line, or almost always have. And the few times I've been adventurous, I've been well rewarded. So what does that tell me is I should have been trying to stick my fingers in vaginas and, like, you know, stick my tongue in girls' throats any chance I get, you know?
One of the concerns is...
I've been in a lot of situations...
Sorry, go ahead. It's this delay on this phone. That's why it's doing
I was just going to say, I know the delay fucks it up. Yeah. But I was going to say that, like, there's many times in my life where I know I've passed up that because I've almost always erred on the side of caution.
Yeah, and regretted it later, right? Like,
made those girls mad.
Yeah, like 8 years later, you're laying in bed going, man, I could have fucked her. I totally could have fucked her.
No, she was daring me to fuck her.
Right.
Like that's what I'm saying. But that's part of the problem is we have a society where we teach women that men are going to pursue them relentlessly like voracious wolves, and that they're just going to have to pick and choose who they're going to open their legs for. And that's really twisted, because I feel like teaching men and women how to express interest in each other. Like, I like women who express interest in me. I don't mind being a man and still kind of like being a little assertive, but like, I like a woman to throw up some signals, you know, and like most women are throwing up such subtle signals because it's supposed to be implied that I'm into you because I'm a woman, I'm hanging out with you, but it's like, we're just hanging out, you know. I mean, again, as you said, it's so clearly defined and yet so fuzzy and slippery too.
Yeah. And then there's also the concern of consent. When you talk about consent, it's like, okay, maybe you pushed a little bit, you were a little aggressive, you weren't rapey, but she consented. And then what happens if afterwards she's like, yeah, that was a mistake, I didn't mean to consent, or by the way, you actually pressured me, I didn't really want to. Then you're like, what the fuck? What's the comedian?
Yeah. No, exactly.
Aziz Ansari, am I pronouncing it right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the one that recently... Yeah, I mean, he's the one that just, like, you know, had a little awkward date and tried pushing a little bit and then got all kinds of backlash for it. Undue backlash. But you and I...
It's insane.
You and I don't have to worry about that. We have partners. We have to worry more about, I think, like... you know, when and how are our partners in the mood, and how do we connect with them and grow closer to them? That's a whole different challenge than just getting laid.
But I think it's all one and the same. Number one, number two. I also think that our concerns are societal. Even if you and I aren't contending with this issue, it's just like I think about kids in school. I'm not a teacher. I don't teach kids. I don't have kids in school. But I think about how our society is raising children all the time because it's a concern to me.
Right.
It's called communal responsibility. I have a responsibility to think about these things because when I have a chance to voice my opinion with people, I have a responsibility to do so. So back to the idea of like, yeah, the idea of that is more back to we're living in a time when we've disconnected from what is natural and we're letting people tell us what is supposed to be natural instead of listening to our natural impulses. And that's why people get confused and angry and need drugs.
So let's leave it on this then. Not leave it on this as in leave it on a down note, but then let's leave it on an up note. What are the... And I know some of the things you're going to say, but what are the practical steps that a person can take to combat or almost prevention to sort of to make sure that the sickness doesn't reach them? What are some things we can do to change the vibration of society right now as we see it?
People need to start listening and understand what listening means. And I don't mean listening with your ears. I mean, people need to start realizing that there's many levels of communication going on all the time. And that we need to understand what the information coming into our senses means. That's what listening is about. Listening isn't hearing the words coming out of someone's mouth. It's understanding what the words are trying to represent, the idea. And I think that that's really important because that level of understanding things, making that initial effort as a receiver of information to comprehend it on a deeper level and to not just perceive it on plain face value. I think that's really important. I think that that's what we're missing. And the fact that people don't realize that listening doesn't mean just with our ears, that we need to listen to situations, we need to listen to ourselves. We need to listen to things when they speak to us with things other than words. Because I think the whole universe is communicating with us and we're just stupid and going la 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 with our fingers in our ears.
All right, well, on that note, Anthony, let's do this again.
Hey, be good.
All right, one love. Take care.
Later.
This is called Summer Rhyme, and the layman is easy. Adventuring dimensionally, aggregating potentially, a latter-day saint I enunciate exponentially. Been long gone mentally, like a willow I'm bending free, my words on the wind blow out to the void and rescind. I've done there, been that, like Schrodinger's cat, half alive, half dead, half rat. Let my rhymes out the box, and that's that. You see, I need an observer. It feeds my fervor. Fermenting nervously, I spit my verse at thee, inventing verbiage that's years ahead of ye. Don't get ahead of me, unless you'll give head to me. I've read you like an open book. I skipped to the end, and look, it won't work out, so I gotta mark out. The world's not ready. My whirl in time is absent-minded, unsteady, concentrically tangential, insubstantial affair, and this body's a rental, a non-denominational temple. I preach to the masses, teach knowledge in classes, pulling heads out of asses. Expel your fell odors into more noble gases. Don't bat your lashes or roll your eyes. That's when my fist collides with your third eye and smashes preconceptions. No self-deceptions, just top-of-the-shelf corrections to your attitude. With every platitude, I remind you that it doesn't matter, dude. Just do you. Do without wilt, swallow without spilt. Okay. Stick a fork in me, stick a sword in me, I've had it up to hilt. This poem's the Tower of Babel I built only to knock it down. Time to face up, stop being a clown and make up these rhymes so cheesy. But it's summertime, and the layman is easy.
My brain is erect with a psychic boner. Insane and vexed, I became a loner. Thoughts are possessed, but I haven't met their owner. Just a background character in someone's free roamer.
Thank you for listening to the Opus Marcus Podcast. I hope you'll indulge me for one final piece, something that I've wanted to read aloud and put to music for a while now, and it deserves a little bit of context. Back in 2009, I co-wrote and published a book with my friends Noel and Doug called Heroes and Hierophants, which was a collection of pieces that we wrote based on topics that we would come up with each week. And we were in the middle of a sequel called Psychos and Sycophants, at least that was the working title, which fell through and never got published. And some of my best writing was done during that period, and that's where this piece comes from. The topic was actually Noel's, and it was to come up with a concept for an 8-bit video game. I decided to do basically a gameplay manual for an imaginary 8-bit video game. In this game, you are a character called the POEMFISHER, who goes on an epic journey through 7 different worlds. Each level has a mission for you to complete, 2 different kinds of enemies, and 1 boss at the end of each level. You receive a weapon and a sigil, which is a symbolic object to help you defeat each boss. and every world has a hidden level for you to restore health. It's a game with a lot of visual puns, so I'm going to ask you to use your imagination, trademark, as we peruse the gameplay manual for POEMFISHER, an 8-bit misadventure. Game setup. Personal insecurity questions. Given the circumstances of the current human condition, what is your favorite fruit and why? Can the circumference of a thought become tangent to the topic? Solve with proof. How many s'mores does it take to get to the underside of disillusionment? What is your most enigmatic quirk? Do you feel that you qualify for this relationship? Why or why not? Describe the folding patterns of your laundry. Narrate a moment in your life when you became someone else. Write a recipe for disaster. What is the greatest lesson you never learned? Which kind of fungus would you likely choose to mate with? What do you see in a totally closed cubicle room whose entire surface is mirrored? What is the fastest way to go nowhere? Fill in the blanks. My blank conflicts with my blank, comma, but I've learned to deal with my blank. Who is your lamest role model? You roll an infinite-sided die, and the number it lands on is... On which street did your pet's great-grandmother meet her first boyfriend at? What do you fear the least? Describe your favorite smell without referring to other smells. How do you choose to face the impending situation? Press play. Press play. Level 0. Exodus. World, Fractopolis in the recursive void. Mission, disappear over the horizon. Weapon, iambic armor. Enemies, mandelbots and spiral dynamos. Boss, the humdrummer. Sigil, Towel De Ching. Hidden level, Home Sweet Tome. Your latest book of poems has caught the attention of the humdrummer, who has sent his mandelbots to arrest you for rhymes against humanity. While sitting in prison, you are visited by your pal, the Zeitghost. He sneaked in your iambic armor and instructs you to put it on, ram at full speed, and break out through the fourth wall. The hidden level here is your house, Home Sweet Tome, and this is where your first sigil is located. You must spiral home through the patterns of Fractalopolis while evading the mandelbots. Use your iambic armor to deflect spiral dynamos. They are frequent atmospheric disturbances that occur throughout the recursive void. When you arrive home, the juxtaphysician is there to make a house call. He heals your wounds and restores your health bits. You stop in the bathroom to grab the sigil, your trusty Tao De Ching. Your mission is to make it to the borders of Fractalopolis and disappear over the horizon. But where will you go? With all the infinite galaxies stretched across this infinite bit universe, surely one of them appreciates good poetry. At the portal gates of Fractalopolis, you must confront the humdrummer. Your iambic armor will help protect your health bits, while you use the Tao De Ching to whip the humdrummer into submission. If this boss defeats you, you must spend the rest of your days under fluorescent lighting, forced to listen to cover versions of call hold music. If you beat the boss, you hop through the first portal you can reach, a planet named Gaia in the Milky Way galaxy. The indubitable Zeitghost decides to come along and keep you company. Level 1, Cosmic Crisis. World, the Haberdash Galaxy. Mission, migrate to the Milky Way. Weapon, heliotropic halo. Enemies, solar babies and hive minds. Boss, the old black hole. Sigil, comet's tail. Hidden level, quintessence quasar bar. Ripples of cosmic wrinkles recede in your wake as you race out of the Haberdash Galaxy and into darker matters. Your mission is to foam it to the Milky Way while avoiding a never-ending barrage of attention-seeking solar babies. Also beware of the hive minds, a giant swarm of winged brains and dangling nerves that surround and lash you with their spinal taps. Obtaining the heliotropic halo will allow you to boomerang the solar babies and/or distract the hive minds. The sigil you need is a comet's tail, which flies around the screen defying you to catch it. If you locate the hidden level, quintessence quasar bar, the juxtaphysician will mix a restorative brew for you to accrue more health bits. As you approach the rim of the Milky Way galaxy, old black hole emerges from its singularity in the galactic center, shooting various multicolored bursts of retromimetic radiation. You must repeatedly slingshot the comet's tail around old black hole's event horizon. If thrown at the right force and angle, the tail will spiral into the singularity, causing damage to this quantum monster. You must also catch the comet tail as it spirals back out again, otherwise it will keep rotating around the event horizon indefinitely. You will continue to use the heliotropic halo against enemies. There are now 2 hive minds who swarm around at random, occasionally merging into a single mass. Solar babies will also be birthing all over the place, so keep alert. If this boss defeats you, you are sucked into a single strand of subatomic string and helplessly threaded into the out-of-fashion fabric of space-time. If you beat the boss, you can now get on your way to Gaia. Unfortunately, you quickly discover that this planet is nowhere near the peaceful, poem-loving paradise you were praying for. Level 2, Atmosphere. World, Skyfeld. Mission, shatter the sky dome. Weapon, tectonic plates. Enemies, volcanic interruptions, and human beings. Boss, the pterodactyl. Sigil, storm cloud atlas. Hidden level, torn mountain. You begin to realize the gravity of your situation as you plummet through the planet's atmosphere. As you fall, Gaia rotates rapidly around your field of view. It is spackled with volcanoes that are spewing out a vile lava-like substance. These volcanic interruptions will momentarily cease your fall, but also render you immobile in midair, thus making you vulnerable to attack from the deadly human beings who use their sizable stingers to stab at your health bits. Keep a lookout for the hidden level, Torn Mountain. Inside is the juxtaphysician, wearing a chef's hat and apron. He has prepared samples of Gaian delicacies that tickle your taste bits and restore health. In gratitude, you volunteer to wash the dishes, and the juxtaphysician lets you keep his tectonic plates, handy weapons against the enemies waiting outside. Toss the plates in the right place at the right time, and seismic shocks will stun or scatter your enemies. As you fall through this level, maneuver the controller to search each passing cloud formation. Once you locate the storm cloud atlas, the pterodactyl instinctively swoops down to defend his sky dome. Use the storm cloud atlas to shoot lightning jolts, projectile thunderclaps, and pain-inducing acid precipitations. If this boss defeats you, you get chewed and digested into 8-bit shits. If you beat the boss, the sky dome shatters. You may now consult the storm cloud atlas and choose where on the surface you wish to land. Of course, no matter where you touch down, you're immediately captured by local natives and tickle tortured until you tell them what they want to know. Unfortunately, they don't even know what it is they want to know. Level 3, Terra Incognito. World, Gaia. Mission, complete a puzzle piece. Weapon, feral figs. Enemies, tribal bands and zygotes. Boss, the sandworm. Sigil, tabernacle. Hidden level, temple of tolerance. You've come all this way only to find yourself a prisoner once again. After floating around the tribal village where you're held captive, the Zeitghost reports some interesting information. It seems that your fellow cellmates are all prisoners from other tribes, forced into slavery by this tribe. In fact, the Zeitghost explains, all 5 tribes on Gaia harbor captured slaves from all the other tribes. No one can make peace with each other until all the slaves are freed. Once you escape, tribal bands will try to trap you in drum circles. If a wild zygote spots you, it will multiply itself and stampede you en masse. Luckily, a few feral fig trees are scattered throughout the land. Collect as many ripe figs as you can find. These fortified fruits will turn you into a werewolf for short bursts of time. Race amongst each village, using your enhanced strength and prowess to free the slaves and return them to their homes. The werewolf effect is brief, and you only have a limited number of feral figs, so use them wisely. The hidden level is the Temple of Tolerance, an ancient abode wherein the juxtaphysician performs a healing meditation that restores your health bits. Your sigil is the tabernacle, which you need to find in one of this land's many abandoned temples. Once the mission is complete, the sandworm emerges from his underground lair. He is a wanton warmonger and the mastermind of this entire tribal slave trade. Use the tabernacle to attack by throwing its contents into the mouth of the sandworm. The invading hosts will bloat his insides, releasing poison gases that cause lasting damage. If this boss defeats you, you are mercilessly mangled by his strangulating segments. If you beat the boss, take a dive off a high cliff and plunge into the transparent sea. Maybe the life forms swimming within this liquid know how to show more love. Nah, probably not. Level 4, Into the Abysmal. World, Transparent Sea. Mission, Transverse the Firth of Fifth. Weapon, bubble gun. Enemies, octopies and coral queefs. Boss, Leviathan. Sigil, Pearl of Wisdom. Hidden level, Whirlpool. Splish splash, you are taking a bath. With all of your previous experience, you can now see through the many dangers that await here in the transparent sea. Your mission is to free the Firth of Fifth, blockaded by the dreaded Leviathan with its multitudinous tentasnouts. Evade the octopies and their 8 projecting pastries. Their funky flavors will sicken your health bits. Swim around coral queefs as they release stunning noxious streaks. The bubble gun will catch incoming pies and put a cap on those putrid coral gases. The hidden level is the whirlpool, where the juxtaphysician has a mermaid mud bath and starfish scrub to rejuvenate your health bits. Once you obtain the Pearl of Wisdom sigil, swim to the Firth of Fifth. The Pearl of Wisdom shows you the Leviathan's weak tentasnouts. Firing the bubble gun into each tentasnout will send painful air pockets into the creature's amorphous innards. If this boss defeats you, you are turned into a submarine and forced to roam the ocean searching for unrequited love. If you beat the boss, the mouth of the river opens, roaring with everything it's been meaning to say. You, however, get flooded in mud, start digging in the dirt, and soon discover hollow earth. Level 5, Hollow Pursuits. World, Undercrust. Mission: reach the core belief. Weapon: breath of fire. Enemies: manphibians and fossil fools. Boss: magma animus. Sigil: root of matter. Hidden level: yurt locker. Who would have thought that Guy is just a shell? Down here in Undercrust, the world is but a hell. As you scribble that last line of pathetic poetry, manphibians fire their criticizers, and fossil fools choke your vision. Hop across floating rocks until you catch your breath of fire, then huff and puff back at your detractors. Your mission is to reach the core belief, located in the heart center of this forsaken planet. You can find shelter in the yurt locker, where the juxtaphysician has repair conditioning and hi-fi access. Underneath Gaia's surface, the trees are all interconnected. You must find the root of matter sigil, and use it to stab away at the magma animus. If this boss defeats you, your flesh is lasciviously licked away by lava ladies. If you beat the boss, take the next thought train expressly to your core belief. Level 6. Superimpositions. World: Meta Realm. Mission: collapse the reality tunnels. Weapon: hologram crackers. Enemies: many too many. Boss: the Mirrorim. Sigil: piffle ball. Hidden level: the self-referencing safe house. Holy heavens! You've entered the core belief only to find even more craziness. Reality tunnels are opening all around you. Your mission is to collapse them before the entire game narrative dissolves. In this malicious meta maze, all former backdrops of previous levels are superimposed. The previous levels have coalesced, and you must face all of your resurrected enemies. Collect and throw hologram crackers, which cause your enemies to infinitely subdivide into pixelated pictographs. Find some solace in the self-referencing safe house, where the juxtaphysician feeds you delicious idiomatic confections that gush you a rush of energy. Capture the piffle ball sigil careening around the screen, and use it to bounce pure nonsense off of the malevolent Mirrorim. You can attack when the Mirrorim pauses to reflect too much. If this boss defeats you, you are placed in the pernicious panopticon, with all of your possible selves regretfully reflecting back at each other forever. If you beat the boss, the mirror shatters, and you tatter into unconscious fragments. Level 7. Dissonance. World: Fractalopolis. Mission: climb the sacred geometry. Weapon: all-terrain slippers. Enemies: spider bites and chupacabras. Boss: the narcissist. Sigil: hero font. Hidden level: isolation tank. You awake with brief amnesia and an unceasing sense of deja vu. As your personal identity repurposes, you are disheartened to realize that you're back in Fractalopolis. After all that traveling, who said you can't go home again? Just don't expect it to be the home you remember. They say nature abhors a vacuum, and since you left a big one by defeating the first boss, a new one has arisen to take its place. To face the dreaded narcissist, you must obtain the hero font sigil. You rummage into the closet for your all-terrain slippers, silently cursing yourself for leaving them here in the first place. You'll certainly need them now to traverse the tyrannical territory of Fractalopolis. The slippers will also help you evade or squash new enemies, spider bites, who suck all your bits in the very first bite, and chupacabras, who prefer to slowly bite you apart, bit by bit. Here's a hint. Head to the hospital to find the hidden level. You can develop a higher awareness in the isolation tank, deliciously deprived of any and all sensory stimulation. However, you can't stay in there forever. When your session ends, the juxtaphysician pops you a prayer capsule. You'll need it for completing your mission to climb the sacred geometry. Atop it awaits the narcissist who parasitically punctures your programs, unwinding all those precious equations. Once he gains hold, he will grow on you until ending this game just a moment too soon seems like the perfectly acceptable thing to do under these circumstances. You must quickly learn how to yield the hero font as it continually morphs into any random character, grapheme, nuance, symbol, or sign. Use it wisely to kill the narcissist with logically positive vibes and clever diatribes. If this boss defeats you, you'll always be second place in the pantheon of the greats. Hey, it could be worse, because if you beat the boss, it's worse. Final boss, Glurg, the peerless war god of the immortals. The peerless war god of the immortals steps its oversoul into the whole game to find out what all this ruckus is about. It is not pleased. You cannot escape the gaze of that single eye on top of its pyramid head. It immediately notices and judges you to be the culprit of this cosmic calamity. Who is the peerless war god of the immortals? That is a question only you can answer. This final boss is based around your responses to the personal insecurity questions you answered during game setup. Thus, the peerless war god of the immortals will take a different form for each of you, depending on your perspective, or lack thereof. You have all of your weapons and sigils available to use. If this final boss finally finishes you, go take a long, cold shower and think about your life. If you finish off the final boss, relax and enjoy a steaming, victorious bath. As the credits roll in, our theme song plays, and you rock out.
Thanks for playing.
It's very powerful having a positive family, the power of the prayer, and God, plus the positive attitude. All those things mean so much to get you through life.
We covered all the important stuff.
That's right. So now let's cover the unimportant stuff.
It's a microcosm of all of the pain of the United States.
Ooh.
You see, getting his mood.
We left on a specific thought thread. You don't remember where we ended it, huh?
I'm not sure I remember what I did yesterday. No, I'm just kidding. When you're in the moment, there's only this moment.
I guess tune in next time when I have some interesting shit to talk about. Other than that, I love you. I love the world. Peace out.
Sir, I avoid responsibility. That way nobody feels compelled to put me in a position of power.
Be excited, because now it's here. Shiny gift of a lesson that you have in front of you. And now you have to work through it. You really have to, if you want to and you're tired of it, you have to work through it.
Why not? And give yourself, I would call it a dose of real reality. I mean, where nothing makes sense but everything works.
Let's be real. None of this is real.
I feel like I'm telling a story. What's your advice for people in life?
My advice is to stay strong, be helpful, be smart, be brave, be powerful, be kind, and be loving to everyone, even your pets.
People are like, oh, wouldn't you get lonely when all your loved one dies? Like, no, you get new loved ones.
We really don't know what's in store for us. We really don't know.
Well, would you want to know?
Well, no.
No.
Let's say something bad happened to you. Move on. It already happened. Just move on to the better things in life.
I hope it's really not just us. Right. And everyone else is like, self-created eternal hell. No. Every waking moment is a joyous experience of growth and opportunity. I find myself totally spiritual centered and at peace with the balance between me and the rest of the universe.
What a heck of time!
After all that, they won the game.